Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Dekoni Audio Padcast. I'm Dan, and I'm here with Tal and Dylan, and we are here with our special guest, Axel. Would you like to say hello, Axel?
No, it's not just Axel. This is the Axel Grell, by the way.
The Axel Grell.
And this is the Dekoni Podcast number 2.
Yeah,
Yes.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
No problem. It's a pleasure having you on.
So let's get right into it. The biggest thing I wanted to ask you today is, how did you get your start in the audio field? Where did you come from?
Oh, yeah, it's a long trip. So, so my father was infected by it already. So he played in a kind of band already. He played electric guitar, and he built his own Hammond. No, not really Hammond. So it was not mechanical, but really electronical organs. He built them himself, and some speakers as well. And so I built my first speaker cabinet because I don't like the speakers that were around when I was 12 years old. And so then I found out that it was not only the speaker that I had, but the tape recorder. And so I upgraded the tape recorders and so on and so on. And it ended up...
What? Sorry to interrupt. Like the time frame, what decade was that?
Oh, sorry, that was the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah,
because
nice.
I think, I mean, you're talking about your father was making synthesizers much easier to do today with all the digital stuff than it was back in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s.
No, that
right?
was, 70s, beginning and middle of the 70s. Okay, then I had a motorcycle phase. And
Nice.
yeah, and then we wanted to be famous with rock music. So we started a band, and I was the keyboard player, but I'm not good in doing that. But it turned out that I was much better in recordings and creating sound. And so I built up a PA system, traveled around for something like 10 years with bands. One of them went European-wise famous. So, but it was at that time they went famous. I was no longer their sound man because too much traveling, and I have in parallel to do the university. And so it's. And my girlfriend at that time, she wanted not that I travel around that much. After I finished university, I had to find a job somewhere where I stay at home because my girlfriend that time went my wife. There was a company close by called Sennheiser. And so I applied for a job. I don't know what. So could be microphones, could be whatever they are doing. And so it turned out they had a position as a headphone development engineer. And I used headphones before, of course, for when you're working on the console, you need to have headphones, but I listen to music most of the time with loudspeakers. And so I started to develop headphones. My first thing, so 2 years after I started to work for them, was HD 580s. So that developed into the HD 600s by exchanging just the rear grid because, for some internal reasons. So the grid of the HE60s, so the baby Orpheus. So, and at that time when we made HD 580s, product management said, okay, this nice metal grid is just for the HE60, and the HD 580s should have this plastic grid. And but it was a simple change. Sound change, it doesn't change that much by changing the grid. And then I did a lot of other headphones for Sennheiser, collapsible ones for MP3 players, for the first ones that were a big seller and good sound for the size, and HD 650s, 800s, 500 line. I think in total it was more than 50 different designs for Sennheiser, but had different positions at Sennheiser, not only development engineer, but doing product management, portfolio management for the audiophile stuff.
I have an interesting question. It's you had developed speaker cabinets and you did live sound, touring. What when you applied at Sennheiser and you were given a position to design headphones, was it something that was new, or did you have some knowledge of the science behind the sound?
No, for me, so it was completely jumping into cold water. So I had no idea about headphones. I had a little idea about, of course, yes, what you learn in university about microphones,
Right.
dynamic microphones, condenser, whatever, and on the other side, headphones as well, all the principles, but only very basic. I, I had an idea how things should sound, very clear idea, and and the technology behind. So there were very nice colleagues at Sennheiser, and a lot of experience and knowledge, and it was the atmosphere there at that time very similar to university, sharing thoughts, ideas flying around, and creating something together out of that. So it never have been me, just me. So I'm a very creative guy, but it's always a team when you're working on something. So okay, I had the idea for HD 580s for the tuning and all that, for the driver, for the new film that was used for the diaphragm and stuff like that. But there was a great designer who made the industrial design for it, and there was a great mechanical engineer and the quality guys and all that. So it was a team doing that, and purchasing and yeah. So I only did acoustics and project management and crazy ideas.
At the time, was there, a lot of research available to rely on for headphones, or was it kind of new waters for everybody? Because
There was a lot of research going on at that time. So in Germany, different universities were working on things, and Sennheiser, as a company, has a research department. They were working, for example, on this loudness diffuse field method as a method how to, to see how or to make something that is close to, get a graph that shows, okay, this is how a headphone sounds. And there were other in Denmark. There were research, and so we were a little bit at that time Eurocentric, and but we had a good exchange with other companies as well. So we had at that time exchange in research things a little bit, not on IP level, but on how things should be measured and things like that, with biodynamic and AKG as well.
everyone was being nice and sharing. This is
No,
this is
it's
interesting.
good to have some standards where you say, okay, we do the measurements like that, and then we have something that customers can compare, and so it was like that.
Okay.
So it's not okay. We have this finding, and that improves our product a lot, and you can, when you do it the same, you have the same improvement. No, not like that. But internally, there was this situation between colleagues, so really working together and not as in a conflicted way. So there was a lot of sharing thoughts and things like that.
That's awesome. It's great to hear that like you were able to start off like experimenting with speaker cabinets and building basically these loudspeakers, and then shifting to Sennheiser where these people are able to help guide you and able to experiment with all these headphones and developing these. If you don't mind me asking, what lessons did you learn in your career, and how has that shaped your first independently designed headphone, the OAE1?
Yeah, one thing that I've learned is don't accept this, okay, we have tried it already, it doesn't work. This is something that you hear very often, and you have to try new paths.
Would you be happen to referencing the drivers being a little forward facing and the headphone? Something, has that been done before?
Yeah, of course. At that time, there was the AKG K1000, and the K1000 was around the beginning of the 90s and was some, yeah, the sound is coming from here, and I hated it because it had no bass, no bass, and I think bass is something that is a big part of the music. So when you go to live concerts, not only of loud and hip hop, rock, whatever music, even classical music. So it's when you have a double bass, it really shakes you. You feel the vibration of the instruments. And yeah, I think bass is important as well. It's not only these overtones of everything, but the fundamentals as well.
Wasn't there a really old Stax model that had like big boxes and speakers?
Yeah, and that was close one. So they did this version for the broadcasting, whatever. I have seen one of them. I didn't try it. I've seen one of them, but for me the inspiration came from the K1000. Yeah.
Somebody at I think a CanJam New York had one.
Yes, my friend, one of my friends, Jordan, carries them around. Yeah, if you come to CanJam, you see all sorts of weird and interesting headphones from history.
Yeah, I once had a K1000, but I gave it to Jan Meyer of Quarter, so I think he still have it.
Keeping on with the lessons that you're applying to the OAE1 and what you're doing now, I know I cut you off with the front, forward-facing driver design. What are some other things that you had learned that you are applying now to your headphone design?
One thing is, I said it already with the K1000 bass. Bass is underrepresented in the most headphones. And when Beats came out, you remember it's 2008, 2009, the Beats Solo, it was not a great headphone. But Dr. Dre said, you should hear the music as the artists are hearing it. And I said, bullshit. When he want to have that high amount of bass, he should just turn the knob and put in more bass in the recording. But when you compare how it sounds in the studio and at that level, so the Fletcher Munson curves play a role here. So, and then there is much more bass than you hear it normally with the good headphones, like say HD 600, 650s. There is more, and I think there are. One thing is well known for a long time. Okay, you hear headphones only with your eardrums. You don't perceive the sound with your body. So there is something missing, and that's a difference between the loudness diffuse field measurement and the just diffuse field measurements. The diffuse field measurements are made with dummy heads or with probe microphones and test persons. And the loudness thing is, okay, you have to compare a diffuse sound field, third octave by third octave, with so the headphone's response to the flat sound field of that diffuse sound field. And there is this difference, and it is something like 5 dB more. You need 5 dB more at 100 hertz compared to 1 kilohertz. So when you measure flat in just diffuse field, you miss 5 dB when you use the loudness diffuse field method. So it's not completely proven that this is just the body channel, but it turns out, yeah, there is this difference. One thing
is that why some of the preference curves out there have a boost?
Of course it is. It must be somehow reflected in the preference curves, because it's something, okay, you want to have that amount of bass that you expect from your natural perception of things, or perception from good loudspeakers. And but these preference curves, I think we should talk about them a little bit as well, but maybe not now.
Yeah.
I think there's one more thing that I found, and I just found it when going into the OEE one, is when so for me the place where the music sound like it should sound is the place where the mixing takes place in the studio. So you have a live and dead end studio, you have linear speakers there, great studio speakers, and the sound engineer, recording artists, call him or her however you want, but this person is creating the sound and has an idea how it should sound, and is listening to a perfect studio speaker system. All mixes are done with speaker systems, not with headphones. The headphones are used, studio headphones are used to detect problems in the recording. And this is why they have this boosted presence range, things like that. I made studio speakers as well. And so this is the place of truth for me. And when you're listening there, you're listening to two loudspeakers. And the bass is always mixed, not always, but 99% of the recordings are mono in the bass range because of compatibility with radio playback and things like that. And so you hear the bass from the right speaker with the right ear, but you hear the bass without any, with the same sound pressure level from the left speaker as well. And that adds up to 6 dB more on that ear, and it's the same for the left ear as well. And when all these curves were made, so loudness diffuse field, or before this free field curve, it was just one speaker. And so this 6 dB, okay, loudness, we missed 3 dB because there was this uncorrelated noise from many speakers, but there was still some bass that we have not seen. But we are used to that headphone sound with not a lot of bass in it, used to hear that. And so when you have a headphone with more bass, it is, oops, what that? I don't hear the details and everything, but when you listen closely, you have the bass and you hear the details, the same as you heard in the studio. So it's not the case when you have bass that you don't hear the details. So when the details are there and when it's not completely out of balance. So this is something that I've realized in the OEE ones. And so some things I tried before already. So bringing the speaker a little bit more to the front, like the 500 line from Sennheiser, or the HD 800 had the driver more to the front as well. But I built a sample, just a functional sample already in the 90s, made out of an HD 580. I cut out the acoustic baffle and put it in a position like that and showed it to our product manager at that time. And that guy said, oh, that's very interesting. But Grell, we don't do it. So that would not be accepted in the market. And that was a very nice person. I liked him very much. He came from a German company called Grundig, and he was very experienced and good, and he passed away too early. But that was his decision at that time. I said, okay, I put it back in the drawer. Now I took it out of the drawer.
Nice. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with that kind of like, I guess, tug of war that you deal with, because I come from being part of both worlds of like being both a, live sound engineer, but also playing in bands, but also being a studio rat. And it's interesting kind of like especially when it comes to like bass frequencies, it's like, you're at a venue and it's like there's subs not just, you don't just hear the bass, but you are feeling the bass, versus like headphones, you don't get that, you know, the air coming at you, as a lot of people refer to. So it's an interesting kind of obstacle that, you know, headphone engineers like yourself have to face when it comes to trying to recreate that feel when you're listening to music.
It's funny because you see products like the bass pack trying to emulate that feeling, and
Or like the butt kicker.
looks silly. Yeah, it's silly and ridiculous, but there is some idea, like there's some science to being able to feel that bass. You know, I had a professor in school who said, "I like bass that unties my shoelaces." It's it's part of the feeling of music.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of IEM companies, right, are starting to dabble in bone conduction for the low end. There was a company a few years ago that I was working with, actually, with Dekoni, and I don't ever know what happened to them, but they never actually released a product. But they had essentially a haptic system within the headphone itself, similar to what's in, you know, your iPhone, right? With like that haptic system that with those low frequencies, the actual headphone would like vibrate. And the whole point was to try and give you that visceral feeling. But, you know, it's something that you, yeah, like as Dan said, you don't feel that air hitting your chest. So you have to figure out with a headphone how to create that sense of spaciousness, right? Because I think that just even the delay from a speaker system of that bass hitting you helps your brain with the spatialness of the whole system, right? It's not just about what it sounds like, but it's about what the physical movement of the air is doing, right? And the actual sound waves traveling at you. With a headphone, they're traveling, you know, this far, whereas a speaker, they might be traveling 15 feet, right?
Yep.
I mean, I tend to be in the mosh pit, so I'm right there.
You're where it sounds the worst.
Hey, so depends on the band.
I hang out by the front of house guy.
One thing, the brain is doing a lot of things, and some things are really crazy. When I did the tuning of the HD580s, so I was sitting in a listening room that was a very small room at Sennheiser at that time, and you could close the door, you're alone, and we had CD players that time, so that was the source, and we were listening to CDs, and I had a recording of Also sprach Zarathustra, you know, this doom, doom, doom thing, but that was only for organ. That was some recording just with organ, without all these drums and all that. So, and that was very low tones, and I had the impression that the floor under my feet is trembling. So some vibration under my feet. It could not be, and I didn't tell anybody. So I thought, no, you're crazy. So I removed the headphones. Nothing. There were no sound, no vibration. And then listening again, it happened, but I never told it anybody. And some years later, I read, I think on HeadFi, okay, someone else had the same impression. So that he was listening to music with whatever headphone, I don't know, and he felt that the furniture or the floor is vibrating. And and then I started to think about it again, and this is something that when you hear very loud bass tones, that things will vibrate, your brain knows it, and it synthesizes that sensation. For some people, not for all, but it happens. So
I think that's a very normal experience with music. I mean, in a simple way of doing it, I mic up a lot of drum kits in my life. So when I'm sitting in front of the drum kit and the drummer is trying to tune his drum in front of me and he's snapping his snare, you get that the air pressure and your eyes want to close, you know, that snap, that whip. And sometimes when I listen to music and I get that, my brain still feels that sensation, and I want to close my eyes when I hear a really snappy snare in a song. It's just music makes your brain do a little bit of more work and makes you feel more, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great thing about music, so that it do a lot of things with you, and you can't really control what's happening. So it's a very direct access of music to your emotions, and you can control it, and it brings you to a different level somehow. So I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but for me it's like that. So it's
I,
it
I
depends,
think
of
this
course,
is
on the music,
I think this is a
but
I think this is a good transition into the emotional aspects of music, and specifically this thing that you want to measure. A lot of frequency response curves, are just very scientific, and but I heard that you think there's some sort of vector missing, which would be the emotional state of the person taking the preferred listening tests. Can you give us a little bit more information on this emotional state that you're trying to measure?
yeah. So I'm doing two things. So one thing is, first of all, when we do really measurements, we should keep something like personal taste or things like that out first. So when you compare things with music, you have a lot of preferences about genres, things like that. And when you compare things with music, you might like one song a little bit more basic because you like the song, but you like it like that, and it's not that objective. That's one thing, and you need to, of course, integrate your whole. Yeah, it's very individually different how music is received in an objective way, and the next thing is this access to this emotional thing. And I don't really have a good way to. We all know the situation that you hear great equipment and it's not depending on the kind of music, and you get just goosebumps because it sounds so good. And this is something. When it's a perfect setup, when you have the HE1, for example, which is not a bad headphone at all. And I've seen that very often when I did demonstration. People put it on and they get just a smile on their face, or tears were running down, things like that. And yeah, I try to find ways to describe that. What are the factors are influencing that? It's not only the frequency response. Definitely not.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not only the frequency response. There are a lot of things influencing that. I hope it's not the price tag of the HE1 that gives you this great feeling.
Well,
I would say that a
presentation.
lot of that, yeah, isn't the price tag necessarily, but I think there's that anticipation component of that. Like, especially with HE1, it's a headphone that is, rare, right? It's revered. Everybody sees it as the kind of this holy grail of, or should I say holy grail of
Holy Grail.
headphones. And so it's like just going into that experience, it's kind of like getting something that's packaged really well, right? You get the package, and before you even see the product, you're like, this is going to be good. You know what I mean? And so, like, I wonder if that's part of that experience too. It's like, before you even put them on your head, it's going to be good.
Are you
And so your
saying
brain,
the presentation of the
Yeah.
HE1? So it's in a marble block amplifier, and when you turn it on, the tubes and knobs present themselves in a motor. They come out of the block, and then the headphone case opens itself up to present the headphone to you. Would you say that's influencing people's taste or feelings about the headphones?
It will definitely. Yeah. This is one of the reasons why we made it. So we made it like that, and it's a kind of ballet, this opening thing. So all these timings were very well tested, and there's a mode, by the way, when this is too boring for you, when you use it daily, that's a fast mode where everything happens at the same time. But that's not a hidden. It's in the manual. You can read about it. This fast opening mode. But I think it's like when you are listening to vinyl. So it's a thing, you are taking the record out of the sleeve and you're cleaning the record, and then you put the needle on it, and it's something different access. Yeah, but it's a complete different experience to when you're using streaming services where you go to the next song and then to the next song, and oh, that's interesting for me as well, maybe I listen to that song. It's not the same as putting all your concentration on that album and sit down and just listen to that and let the music just flow in. So I think that's a very good way to listen. So don't need to be vinyl, but to take the time to listen to one album as it was made by the artists, and it's not only the musicians but the recording artists as well, to get this direct connection to the music. But I think it is not only these things that make the HE1 a special headphone. It's the openness as well. It's how fast it is, how the transients. So a lot of things are really very good in this headphone. The distortion is very, very low. So all that makes it a great headphone. And when you compare it to a cheap headphone that don't give you that emotion, you see that these headphones doesn't fulfill these things. And there are a lot of parameters that influence your perception and the emotions that you get. And we have a project with the University of Hanover. So there's the Institute for Communication Technology, and this whole project is sponsored. So we get a PhD candidate paid by the German government. So that's very nice. And we try to get these parameters and put some numbers on them. It's not that easy. So we do the measurements on one side and we do some subjective listening tests on the other side and try to get them together. So one thing is openness of the headphone. Another thing is the position of the driver, whereas the best, or the position that reflects your own transfer function, ear-related transfer function best, or is your own ear-related transfer function the right thing, or is it something else? Things like that. And that's not all. There are a lot of things, and I don't think that we're done with just this one project that runs for 2.5 years.
That's actually a perfect segue into earpads, right? Which is what Dekoni does, of course.
Shameless plug.
So I guess, is it, possible to quantify, sort of how much of the sound comes from earpads versus not, or how to use an earpad for tuning? I did a study a couple of years ago where I did a ton of measurements of I took an open back headphones and closed back headphones, a bunch of the ones that we had. I think I took 4 of each. I measured stock pads for each one compared to our sheepskin, compared to our velour, right, our fenestrated sheepskin, to see if I could find some proper correlations between just a pad change and the headphone. And what I came up with was no. Every headphone was very different in the way it reacted to a different ear pad versus the stock. And that's taking into account some of them had velour stock and some might have a protein leather stock. And then I also did something else where I think I took the biodynamic closed back and open back, right? Because they're the same form factor. And I took pads. I made some pads that were deeper, some that were shallower, some that had larger diameters, some that had smaller diameters. And I found that even in that case, the headphones did some pretty wildly unanticipated things when measured with making those kinds of adjustments. So at the end of it, I came out with, with at least with the data that I could come up with, I didn't find a correlation, and that it's really obviously a lot more than just the ear pad that makes a difference, right? It is how is the ear pad coupled? I'm sure goes into that. What are the materials used in, the headphone itself, and what kind of plastic are they using, right? Is it a plastic that's resonating itself? Is it, more of a dead kind of thing? So I guess from your perspective, I think more ear pads, yes, but I think also I'd be interested to know how the different materials, like using a plastic that's got, nylon in it versus not, right? And how the plastic can affect sort of that sound and resonate. I know that was a word salad, but can you kind of talk a little bit about materials and talk about ear pads, please, but also talk about some of the other concepts about actually building a headphone? Because I know, again, a lot of people today, there's a lot of guys out there that are just 3D printing headphones, right? There are a dime a dozen these days. Like, oh, I made a headphone, and it's like, oh, it's 3D printed. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's great. So
no, I think it's good, but the I guess what I'm getting at is that the materials themselves are finite in that case, right? They're not deciding between resonances.
We are printing things as well.
Materials.
So when we start with something, that's a very early heavies acoustic baffle. So I think that's good that we have it. I think HD580s, by the way, was the first headphones that were 3D printed. It was made from this resin, with a UV hardening. This process, not printing like
not FDM, but
ABS
SLA
printing, but this resin thing with the UV curing. That was in the beginning of the 90s, and it was the first for Sennheiser for sure that was printed like that. The first prototype, of course, not really the headband. We printed that as well, and I had a demonstration. Funny thing, so we had all the distributors there from all over the world, and I said, okay, you have to put it very carefully on your ears and take it away. And there were one guy from Japan, and he really moved it carefully from his head and said, "This is a great headphone." And then like that, hey, it was broken. Okay, we repaired it with some steel band and so on, but it was a great headphone. Yes, but I think it's great that people are using 3D stuff. So we like to use PA 12 printing, so this HP printers. So because the material is absorbing sound, and so it's not this cheap plastic like ABS could, when it's too thin, could resonate a lot. You have to make it really very thick that it is absorbing a little bit of sound, and PA is much better in doing that. And so I try to use PA 6, PA 66, PA 12, whatever, for headphones, for the acoustical parts. So that's a good solution. Ear pads, just to come back to that, when you are doing dynamic headphones, you have a lot of parameters where you can change the sound. First of all, the driver itself, the shape of the diaphragm, the resonance frequency, all that, voice coil material, and so on. So when you can create your own driver, and I could do that at Sennheiser, you have a lot of parameters in the driver already, then the damper of the driver, then the damper between the front and the rear side could be different when you have a closed one, the back volume and bass tubes, things like that. And of course, the ear pad, the inner, so the volume around the ear, so bigger or smaller, and yes, how open is it, and how reflective is the surface of the ear pad. So depending on the material. But when it comes to electrostatic headphones, you just have the diaphragm. You can control the resonance frequency and the quality of this with the damper, maybe. And that's it. Everything else is done by just mechanics. Okay, you don't want to have reverberation chambers, and by the ear pads. So all the tuning of HE1, for example, and the HE90s, the old Orpheus, was just made by, yes, tuning of the ear pads in the right way. And yeah, there's a lot of knowledge and technology in that. So it's not only for the open ones, where the openness of the ear pad is very, very important, because yeah, it need to have the right openness. So you have to have the right fabric, and you have to have the right foam, and that need to be controlled in production. A closed one looks simple. Okay, it's just a piece of artificial leather, and you shape it like that. But the material and how and the foam itself play a role, and how much tension is in the material. All these things influence the sound, and it's kind of art to create ear pads. So it's not everybody can do it. Dekoni can. So it was
Thanks, Axel.
When we met the first time on a CanJam in New York, I think it's long time ago. I don't really remember, so it must be.
It was 2017, I think. I remember. Actually,
yeah. Do you remember
2017 or 18? I do remember, because I remember you really liked our HD 800 pads, and yes. I was very excited about it. I was like, Axel Grell likes our HD 800 pads.
So I really like them, and I saw, okay, it's not just another. Okay, we have made something and it's a ear pad, but it was some research and some experience behind it, and so this is. It's not just, okay, I have replacement parts, it's cheaper or whatever than the standard stuff, and just buy it and you get something. It is really made with passion for the sound. And so this is what I liked about it, and still like about the Dekoni ear pads. So, it's just something that I have on my table here. So working on ear pads and trying things there is daily work. So I didn't put it on my desk because we have this call here today. It's daily work to create on to work on ear pads and get modifications done and so on. And I know, Tol, you're doing the same thing with different materials and different results, but I like what you're doing, really.
Thanks. So I think actually this might be a good segue into our listener questions. So we did do a contest, ask Axel a question, and we had quite a few entries, and so I know that we have all kind of gone through and looked at them, but one of them did have to do with ear pads, and I'm just finding it. Here we go. So somebody named Ryan Liu asked the question, are you partnering with Dekoni to bring out earpad options for tuning for the OAE1? I'm assuming he's discussing maybe more for studio-like tuning, or maybe improving wearing comfort. The answer is yes. We are. Dekoni is working on some ear pads for that headphone. And I did send you with a pair after Munich. You stated that you thought they were nice. Not to put you on the spot, what did you see in those pads? What was your thought about it? How is the acoustic impedance of them? I know that's very important too, right?
Yeah, you sent two different versions, and one of them is really very good already. So that were prototypes. Yeah, it is a little bit more bass light than the original one. It sounds good and it measures good, and someone who's looking for, say, more traditional frequency response, I think it's a great choice to use that. The other one, I think, is on the right path. So I like the material as well. So it's a different material. Yeah. But I think because we have this cutout for the speaker here. I don't know if you can see that. Oops. Yes. So this one, I think that we need to do, or you need to do in that case, some work on that. That's not final yet. Yeah. So it cost me some time to get that from a earpad supplier, so we are not suing the earpads ourselves here in our headquarters. So to get it like that as it is, now as I wanted it. It's so earpad development is nothing when you say, okay, do it like that. These are the dimensions. Do it. It's making prototypes, listening tests, and so on. And yes, and I think we were talking about earpads for the OE ones for a while, but it takes a while to create them when you really want to get the quality that you want to have.
I will say that, developing earpads for quite some time now, a couple of years, there are some things that you can rely on, some kind of anecdotal truths in earpad design that kind of shortens the time span to prototyping. Like if something's a little bass light, a couple of things in your trick book to get to the next prototype that will get you back the bass that you're looking for. So working with people who are knowledgeable on it can, shorten your time span instead of having to learn all of these things on your own. That's why it was cool to hear you talk about Sennheiser being a college campus and everybody sharing ideas. It makes you look at things differently, and it's a community. A child's not raised without a community, and these are our children.
Yeah,
it's very important.
Yeah, I think it stems, as Axel said, from passion, right?
Yeah,
it's an important component, just like any other.
Yeah, and it was not only the headphone engineers. So we had the mic on the other side of the wall. We had and there was not really a wall. It was a glass window between our rooms
with bars.
So we could see them and the microphone guys. And they were great acoustical engineers as well. For example, the ideas for the in-ears, the dynamic in-ears with Helmholtz absorbers in it, i.e. 800. That was an idea from the microphone development engineer, because they were using a lot of absorbers and so on in their designs. Mm-hmm. And okay, so they're Helmholtz resonators, but they are adding no resonances, but they're absorbing taking out sound. So this is why I call them Helmholtz absorbers. And that was the great thing for the Sennheiser in-ears. And yeah, when you look at them, how this evolved from the IE 800 to things like the IE 900 today, and this whole range, I think great in-ears and coming from a microphone development engineer. So I think he has a patent for that. Great.
Talking about the importance of community and, talking with other like-minded people, I'd like to take a few moments to talk about our CanJam SoCal 2025 giveaway. It's something that we decided that would be really cool to give one of our fans a chance to see everybody in SoCal at CanJam, the headphone convention, where you can hear, listen, talk to everybody who's like-minded and enthusiasts. So if you'd like to sign up, you can just join us in the link in the description.
August 1st is when it ends. So I think you have 42 more days, depending on what time zone. Well, actually, I just gave away when we recorded this, but you got less than 42 days to enter. Now, the contest is 2 free round-trip tickets from anywhere on the planet, by the way.
Oh, wow, okay.
So maybe I should apply for it.
Maybe. Plus 3 nights hotel at the Marriott or the CanJam, Marriott Irvine, where the CanJam's being held. Just 1 hotel room. And then also, as an added bonus, we're going to buy that winter dinner, chicken dinner. Winter chicken dinner with Axel Grell. It's like a date with Axel.
That's the second prize. The first prize is something on me.
Yeah. It's you get a date with Axel.
Axel, if you entered and you won, you'd get to go on a date with yourself.
Oh, I think I could not stand that. So that's too much.
So you can guarantee a good time. So yeah, that's the contest. The entries are building. It's pretty fun to see all the interest. I think this was kind of born out of so many. CanJam it's growing, right? There's so many now. But I think the biggest shows like SoCal in New York, so many people come, but there's so many people that want to come that can't come. And so we want to give the opportunity to somebody who maybe couldn't come otherwise,
And I got to go for the first time. I went to CanJam, New York, and I had a great
February.
time. Yeah, it was awesome. I got to hang out with Axel. We got to enjoy some New York pizza, courtesy of
It was
Dylan.
great. Yeah.
So enter into the contest. I guarantee you you'll have a great time.
And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Eric H., who is hails from Slovakia, asked the next question. He says, the HD 800's soundstage is legendary, but also polarizing due to perceived treble peaks and spatial exaggeration. Can you walk us through the original design intent of the ring radiator transducer and how you addressed or perhaps accepted its psychoacoustic side effects like the infamous 6 kilohertz peak?
So the original idea was, or is, okay, create a sound field that is larger than the sound field created by just a normal dynamic transducer, where the sound for the high frequencies is just radiated more or less by the dome. And so this dome diameter is something like 13 or 18 millimeters. So it's not that large, and it's somewhere hovering over the ear. And I wanted to create a sound field, not just a sound spot. And so like it is created by electrostatic headphones. And you know, when you have, at that time, old Orpheus AG90 was still the reference for me. Didn't have a lot of bass, but it was a great headphone. And the room that it creates and how you can detect the instruments where they are in the room, so soundstage, all that was better than everything else that I've heard before. And I thought, okay, how could that happen? And it's really the big surface that is radiating sound and involving the my pinner into the sound field, or shaping, say it like that. So with the dynamic transducer, when you just make the surface bigger, suspension part of the diaphragm will not radiate so much sound, and it starts to make uncontrolled movements because it's the controlling elements are the voice coil bringing the movement in, and then the rim controlling the other part. But when the distance between these two parts is too big, at a certain frequency, depending, of course, on the material that is used, but it needs to be some soft material, otherwise the resonance frequency of the whole thing would be too high. So it starts to make uncontrolled movements. And so the only thing is, when I said before, I did PA speakers and stuff like that before, so I know ring radiators. And ring radiators had the same problem. They need to have a big surface to create high sound pressure level and get the heat out of the voice coil at the high, relatively high power levels these PA drivers are driven with. And so ring radiator is a good idea, but it's something, it's a metal diaphragm, just punched, and that's also, and the sound quality of a ring radiator for PA is not really very good, but it's loud. And so I said, okay, let's try something like that for headphones, but with a very low frequency response. So a wideband thing, not only working at from 5 kilohertz up to something. And so that worked very well. And the distance between the voice coil and the voice coil's diameter is 40 millimeters. I think it's still the biggest voice coil in headphones that has been realized, and it's difficult to handle this voice coil when you have wound it, and it's only 3 millimeters high and 2 layers. So to get that from the bobbin and put it on the diaphragm, it's really difficult to do that. But we created something with that, creates this kind of sound field. It doesn't look as the same as with electrostatic. It's more like a donut. It's a big sound field in the end, and that creates this. It's not in the front. It's here and there on the left and on the right side in the front, in front localization, without head tracking and all that, impossible. So, and the idea was just to create something that is sounding better than the cheap Stax electrostats that time. I think we achieved that. So we got some reviews where they compared the HD800 directly to electrostats, some of the cheaper ones. And we really achieved that. And I love electric sets, but always need to have this dedicated amplifier, high voltage thing, and these cables and all that. And the HD800, just plug it in each and every headphone amp that you have, and it sounds okay. It's a little bit transparent to the quality of headphone amplifiers. When you have a good one, it sounds good.
So another question, somebody named MP, they're from Germany actually. There's a central theme to this question that I think would be interesting to talk about, but why do older as well as newer audiophile Sennheiser headphones, but I think in general, have an impedance of around 300 ohms? Is it to maximize the electrical damping because it stays linear regardless of output SPL? Or is it solely a legacy thing from the days when people would hook up headphones directly to a speaker
amplifier
output?
outputs?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to close the window. Here's some noise outside. So it's this 300 ohm impedance is remaining from the old times when you had tube amplifiers that should drive with their output without any transformer, without any iron in between, directly headphones. So there are some 600 ohm, 1200 ohm headphones as well. So we made a special version at Sennheiser with 2000 ohms for BBC because they had some devices that had this very high impedance output. 300 ohm is a good compromise, I think. Still, so you can drive it with low voltage outputs as well as you can plug it directly to an output of a power amplifier without destroying it directly. So don't do it with a 30 ohm thing. That would not work. Yeah. So it's not the electric damping. So the electric damping should not play a dominant role in headphones because you don't know the output impedance of the amplifier. So the dominant damping, it should be the mechanical damping, because when the electrical damping, so for headphones like HD600, when you use a low impedance amplifier close to 0 ohms and infinite impedance amplifier, the difference is 2 dBs at 80 hertz. So there is this influence, but it should be as low as possible. And so you could do much more efficient dynamic drivers, but then the influence of the amplifier output is much bigger. So it could be 5-6 dB.
So I have Jason Miller from Germany says, what's one truth in headphone engineering that you believe is misunderstood or oversimplified in the general headphone community?
And the biggest part of the headphone community, the role of the measured frequency response or the connection of measured frequency response and perceived sound is overrated a lot. So I think this is the biggest mistake. To say, okay, I put a headphone on a relatively cheap coupler, I measure a frequency response, and it will sound like that. That's not true. There are so many other parameters influencing the sound. I think that's the biggest mistake. You can't just buy a really cheap, whatever, Hello Kitty headphone and tune it with an equalizer to the current Harman curve. No, it will not sound good.
Right.
Definitely not. I like Hello Kitty,
Right.
but these Hello Kitty headphones are...
I think we did something with Hello Kitty headphones at some point, right, Dylan? I forget now at this point.
Yeah, actually, I owned a pair and then they snapped in half.
Shout out Sanrio.
So there's one more question from Tall K.
Oh, wow.
I wonder who that guy is.
Yo,
But he won. What is next for Axel Grell and Grell Audio? I know you released, of course, the OAE1. But what do you see Grell Audio doing in 5 years, 10 years? What's the long-term goal? What do you want to do that I'm assuming you couldn't do at Sennheiser or just didn't have time to do?
I was always good for disruptive, crazy ideas. At Sennheiser as well. I could not push through all of them. sometimes it took a while. For example, I made the first sketches of this ring radiator thing in 1994, and we started really to realize it in 2007. So it really took a while. And I see Grell. I still have some ideas and some arrows here that I want to fire. OE1 is not the last headphone that we have done. This front-mounted drivers is something that I will continue for sure, but not only this. So there will be other headphones as well. And of course, when you're working on something, you get new ideas, and then you have to see, are they great? Are they not great? Are they nonsense? Whatever. And yes, but setting up a whole portfolio of new solutions of things that are bringing. So the most important thing is the music in the end, so that it sounds great to the listeners. And I think we are not at the end with the development. We are not at the end with getting better. Headphones can be different, can sound okay. We are used to these traditional kind of headphones, but we can make them better, and this is what I try to push through. I think there are a lot of other things or solutions that I can bring to the market as well. And
Cool.
So let's see when they come and how they look like and what it will be. Some major companies stopped research, and we as a very small company, okay, we are growing, but we do research. We invest in new solutions. We spend a lot of time and for our budget, a lot of money into new things and try to make listening with headphones more enjoyable.
Sweet. Well, this brings us to the end of our show, and I have one final question to ask everybody. What's everybody listening with today? Tal, would you like to start us off?
Jeez. Yeah, I'm listening with the Nothing Ear A true wireless earphones, and they're not bad.
Dylan?
My tried and true Odyssey Maxwells. They are just the office power user kind of headphones. I take them anywhere in my house, and they are quiet, and I have side tone, and I can hear myself speak during these podcasts. It's not too closed off.
Nice. I noticed your earpads are a little greener than what normally come on those.
Oh, come on.
Headphones.
The green purpose. Okay, so sometimes you have passion projects. I have these green Odyssey Maxwells, and I wanted green earpads, so we went ahead and made them. Some other people were asking for them too, and I like them a lot. They match the whole aesthetic. Sometimes it's more fashion over function,
What does the color do to the sound?
It makes everything sound like a
It
forest.
sounds meaner. It sounds meaner. Meaner and greener.
More Irish, right?
We're Irish, yeah.
It spices up your sound, because those are the wasabi green earpads.
true.
Oh yeah. It's spicy sound signature.
Axel, what are you listening through today?
So to be honest, it's this one.
Oh, shameless
Look
plug.
at that.
The shit.
OE1.
That's a OE1, and I'm wearing it all day and listening to music with it. But when I'm home or I use Neumann KH310s, I like
right.
listening to.
What's the last song you listened to, Axel?
The last song I listened to is from King Crimson Starless.
Okay.
Nice.
That was the last song I was listening to. So when you are depressive or close to suicide, don't listen to that song.
Well,
Fair.
today I am listening through Fostex TH900s with Dekoni hybrid pads, and also, shameless plug, rocking the Dekoni ensemble cables attached to it. The last song I listened to was Flor de Luna from Santana, one of my favorite albums, Moonflower. Well, Axel, I want to formally say thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Let the people know where they can find you.
Okay, you can find me, of course, on YouTube, where we have a channel where we go really deep into headphone technology, measurements, and things like that. We call it Grell Sound Lab. We are on Instagram, just Grell Audio. And you can find me on CanJams as well. So next time, London. So I'm looking really forward to be there and have a presentation about my findings. And I'm around whenever I can, in person, but in between I have to work on headphones and the nitty-gritty stuff and the paperwork and everything. So it's a lot of enjoyment of music, but a lot of work as well.
Well, this concludes episode 2 of the Dekoni Audio Padcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.